Letter 50 of Evelina. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Elizabeth Klett. Evelina, by Fanny Burney. Letter 50. Evelina to the Reverend Mr. Villars, Holborn, June 27th. I have just received, my dearest Sir, your kind present, and still kinder letter. Surely never had orphans so little to regret as your grateful Evelina. Though motherless, though worse than fatherless, bereft from infancy of the two first and greatest blessings of life, never has she had cause to deplore their loss, never has she felt the omission of a parent's tenderness, care, or indulgence, never, but from sorrow for them, had reason to grieve at the separation. Most thankfully do I receive the token of your approbation, and most studiously will I endeavour so to dispose of it as may merit your generous confidence in my conduct. Your doubts concerning Mr. Macartney give me some uneasiness. Indeed, Sir, he has not the appearance of a man whose sorrows are the effect of guilt. But I hope, before I leave town, to be better acquainted with the situation, and enabled with more certainty of his worth to recommend him to your favour. I am very willing to relinquish all acquaintance with Sir Clement Willoughby, as far as it may depend upon myself to do so; but indeed I know not how I should be able to absolutely forbid him my sight. Miss Mirvan, in her last letter, informs me he is now at Howard Grove, where he continues in high favour with the Captain, and is the life and spirit of the house. My time, since I wrote last, has passed very quietly, Madame Duval having been kept at home by a bad cold, and the Branghtons by bad weather. The young man, indeed, has called 2 or 3 times, and his behaviour, though equally absurd, is more unaccountable than ever. He speaks very little, takes hardly any notice of Madame Duval, and never looks at me without a broad grin. Sometimes he approaches me, as if with intention to communicate intelligence of importance, and then, suddenly stopping short, laughs rudely in my face. Oh, how happy shall I be when the worthy Mrs. Clinton arrives! June 29th. Yesterday morning Mr. Smith called to acquaint us that the Hampstead assembly was to be held that evening, and then he presented Madame Duval with 1 ticket, and brought another to me. I thanked him for his intended civility, but told him I was surprised he had so soon forgotten my already having declined going to the ball. "Lord, Ma'am," cried he, "how should I suppose you was in earnest? Come, come, don't be cross. Here's your grandmama ready to take care of you, so that you can have no fair objection, for she'll see that I don't run away with you. Besides, Ma'am, I got the tickets on purpose." "If you were determined, Sir," said I, "in making me this offer, to allow me no choice of refusal or acceptance, I must think myself less obliged to your intention than I was willing to do." "Dear Ma'am," cried he, "you're so smart there is no speaking to you. Indeed, you are monstrous smart, Ma'am. But come, your grandma shall ask you, and then I shall know you'll not be so cruel." Madame Duval was very ready to interfere. She desired me to make no further opposition, said she should go herself, and insisted upon my accompanying her. It was in vain that I remonstrated; I only incurred her anger; and Mr. Smith, having given both the tickets to Madame Duval with an air of triumph, said he should call early in the evening, and took leave. I was much chagrined at being thus compelled to owe even the shadow of an obligation to so forward a young man; but I determined that nothing should prevail upon me to dance with him, however my refusal might give offence. In the afternoon, when he returned, it was evident that he purposed to both charm and astonish me by his appearance. He was dressed in a very showy manner, but without any taste; and the inelegant smartness of his air and deportment, his visible struggle against education to put on the fine gentleman, added to his frequent conscious glances at a dress to which he was but little accustomed, very effectually destroyed his aim of figuring, and rendered all his efforts useless. During tea entered Miss Branghton and her brother. I was sorry to observe the consternation of the former, when she perceived Mr. Smith. I had intended applying to her for advice upon this occasion, but had been always deterred by her disagreeable abruptness. Having cast her eyes several times from Mr. Smith to me, with manifest displeasure, she seated herself sullenly in the window, scarce answering Madame Duval's enquiries, and, when I spoke to her, turning absolutely away from me. Mr. Smith, delighted at this mark of his importance, sat indolently quiet on his chair, endeavouring by his looks rather to display than to conceal his inward satisfaction. "Good gracious!" cried young Branghton, "why, you're all as fine as a fivepence! Why, where are you going?" "To the Hampstead ball," answered Mr. Smith. "To a ball!" cried he. "What, why, is aunt going to a ball? Ha, ha, ha!" "Yes, to be sure," cried Madame Duval, "I don't know nothing need hinder me." "And pray, aunt, will you dance too?" "Perhaps I may, but I suppose, sir, that's none of your business, whether I do or not." "Lord! Well, I should like to go. I should like to see aunt dance, of all things. But the joke is, I don't believe she'll ever get a partner." "You the most rudest boy ever I see," said Madame Duval angrily; "but I promise you I'll tell your father what you say, for I've no notion of such vulgarness." "Why, Lord, aunt, what are you so angry for? There's no speaking a word but you fly into a passion. You're as bad as Biddy or Poll, for that, if you're always a scolding." "I desire, Tom," cried Miss Branghton, "that you speak for yourself, and do not make so free with my name." "There now, she's up. There's nothing but quarrelling with the women, and it's my belief they like it better than victuals and drink." "Fie, Tom," cried Mr. Smith, "you never remember your manners before the ladies. I'm sure you never heard me speak so rude to them." "Why, Lord, you were a beau, but that's nothing to me. So if you've a mind, you may be so polite as to dance with aunt yourself." Then, with a loud laugh, he declared it would be good fun to see them. "Let it be never so good, or never so bad," cried Madame Duval, "you won't see nothing of it, I promise you. So pray don't let me hear no more of such vulgar pieces of fun, for I assure you I don't like it. And as to my dancing with Mr. Smith, you may see wonderfuller things than that any day in the week." "Why, as to that, ma'am," said Mr. Smith, looking much surprised, "I always thought you intended to play at cards, and so I thought to dance with the young lady." I gladly seized this opportunity to make my declaration that I should not dance at all. "Not dance at all!" repeated Miss Branghton. "Yes, that's a likely matter truly, when people go to balls." "I wish she mayn't," said the brother, "'cause then Mr. Smith will have nobody but aunt for a partner. Lord, how mad he'll be!" "Oh, as to that," said Mr. Smith, "I don't at all fear of prevailing with the young lady, if once I get her to the room." "Indeed, Sir," cried I, much offended by his conceit, "you are mistaken, and therefore I beg leave to undeceive you, as you may be assured my resolution will not alter." "Then pray, Miss, if it is not impertinent," cried Miss Branghton sneeringly, "what do you go for?" "Merely and solely," answered I, "to comply with the request of Madame Duval." "Miss," cried young Branghton, "Bid only wishes it was she, for she has cast a sheep's eye at Mr. Smith this long while." "Tom," cried the sister, rising, "I've the greatest mind in the world to box your ears. How dare you say such a thing of me?" "No, hang it, Tom, no, that's wrong," said Mr. Smith, simpering. "It is indeed to tell the lady's secrets. But never mind him, Miss Biddy, for I won't believe him." "Why, I know Bid would give her ears to go," returned the brother; "but only Mr. Smith likes Miss best, so does everybody else." While the sister gave him a very angry answer, Mr. Smith said to me in a low voice, "Why now, ma'am, how can he be so cruel as to be so much handsomer than your cousins? Nobody can look at them while you are by." "Miss," cried young Branghton, "whatever he says to you, don't mind him, for he means no good. I'll give you my word for it, he'll never marry you; for he has told me again and again he'll never marry as long as he lives. Besides, if he'd any mind to be married, there's Bid would have had him long ago, and thanked him too." "Come, come, Tom, don't tell secrets, you'll make the ladies afraid of me; but I assure you," lowering his voice, "if I did marry, it should be your cousin."